What's up guys, my name is Robin and I make stuff. Today, we're gonna let the watercolor paint itself. It requires a lot of patience, which is something that we don't have a lot of. We're so wired to see things happen immediately. We're gonna do a really cool little springtime scene today. We're gonna do some flowers, some trees, let the watercolor do all the hard work for us. If you love this video, you like hanging out with me, great, I love that for you, and I love that for me. I love that for us. Make sure that you subscribe, like the video, do all the things that you should do if you want to see more of what I'm doing. Let's stop talking about painting and let the watercolor do the work. The first thing we're gonna do, even though we're doing a very loose watercolor, is a little bit of a sketch on here, a guideline, where I want my subjects to go. Put in some little horizon line thing, big Pacific Northwest, evergreen trees, put a path in here, like this, and it's got some perspective to it, so it's gonna start skinny and then get much wider down here at the bottom. In the foreground, we're gonna have some bigger blossomy cherry type trees. They'll be really fun to do. So maybe we have a little flower bush down here, maybe this has a flower bush down here kind of lighting this pathway, and there's some flowers. Maybe over here we've got a couple of people walking, something like that, you know, whatever. We're gonna start with the sky and kind of putting some color in the sky first, starting with our water. I'm gonna get my paper wet, and I'm painting this in my little Haunamule notebook just because it's low pressure. If it sucks, no big deal. It's been really fun to see all of the different things I've painted, even if they've kind of turned out weird. So I'm just bringing that water down about to the horizon line. I'm gonna keep the color of my sky kind of in this top half of the water, but I wanna wet all the way down to the horizon. I'm not gonna drop color down here. I wanna drop it here and let the water pull it down. I've got a really nice clean palette. This is about what my palettes look like all the time. Grab some blue. You can have fun with whatever sky color you love. I'm just gonna kind of drop some color in here. The tapping, tap, tap, tappy, give it a little tappy. That's about it. Let's just see what happens from there. This is where the magic unfolds. On these little pads, the paper really ripples a lot, and the water and the paint is going to find the path of least resistance, and it's coming all the way down here. To control that a little bit, if I don't love it, just grab a paper towel and kind of soak up some of that water in there. Just kind of controlling a little bit that I don't necessarily want that going all the way down there. This is fine. I'm just gonna adjust that a little bit. Now you can always tip the paper a little if you want to give it a little bit of a direction and hold it for a few seconds. You'll see that paint will start to make a move that direction, but don't be tipping it all over the place. Pick a direction and stick with it. We're practicing patience and seeing what will happen. That's the magic of watercolor. So you can see these little pieces in there kind of moving that direction. That's awesome. We have this watercolor finding its way down below the horizon. I could leave it and it would probably be fine. Letting the watercolor paint itself. Okay, this is dry. And you can see it really softened. It started out really dark and that water has just allowed it to soften itself up. So now we're gonna focus on doing some of these trees back here in the background. We'll mix up some ultramarine blue. We're gonna kind of get a green color going. So I'm gonna get some of this yellow, put that in there. And I want this like evergreen, dark green, even darker than that. So I might add a little bit of burnt sienna. Okay, add a little bit more blue in here. I want it to be a little bit darker. It's looking pretty good. I kind of like that color. I don't want it to be too dark, just dark enough that it kind of fades into the background. I want the tops of these trees to have some definition, so I want to put them into the dry, so wet on dry. But I'm gonna wet my paper again just at the bottom, about halfway down. This is the top of the tree here, and then this is halfway between the top of the tree and about the horizon line. So I'm gonna wet from about halfway down here across, and then we'll start dropping these trees in there. Getting some water, just put some water down in here. So my brush is still a little bit green, that's okay. Now my brush already has the shape of a tree point. It's cool, so I'm just gonna do some trees like this, and that water is just gonna do a lot of that work for me. Here we have some bigger trees back here. I can see something that I see a lot of people struggle with, and that's I've got this line and then a straight line. This line, then a straight line. We don't want it to feel like there's this hill and these little like cactus things poking out. So I'm gonna just kind of fill these in a little bit around there, so it doesn't feel so straight. Just making that point on the dry part bringing it down till it hits the wet area. It's doing some really nice pooling right there. We can pull some of that pooling out that we have going on right there. You can do it with your brush. I would wash my brush out, dry it off so that there's room for the liquid to soak up, and watch. It just sucks it right up. We'll let this dry, paint some color in here, also doing wet on wet. These tree trunks are gonna be black, so we don't necessarily need to worry about painting over those. We wanna leave this space open for the path, leave this open as well so we can put some flowers on there. Let's go ahead and get the paper wet again. Go all the way here, and we can go over the people too. Those will be black as well. Following that path, kind of going into the inside of my little bush here. I want it to be soft around there. I don't want this hard edge. I'm gonna leave a little gap over here. Once the water touches the other water, it creates a bridge for that water to flow. So I'm trying to be careful not to touch that. I'm gonna get a lot of paint here. Yellow and green. This one's nice and dark. All right, and we're just gonna kind of come in here and paint along this area, and I'm just kind of dropping but also gliding just a little bit, and then doing the same thing here, keeping that pathway open hopefully. And the other fun thing we can do, get some yellow, which is kind of green because I'm using blue, and I'm just gonna put some of that in here, dropping that in, and we'll see what happens when it mixes on the paper. Going around these little bush areas, grab some more of that yellow and kind of dab that in there. Nice and bright. It's like neon yellow green. You can come and kind of pick some of this up down here so it's not so edgy. While we're waiting for that to kind of dry, we can work on this upper area. We're gonna put some more water. This should be fun. We're gonna do this in a couple of different layers. And these are gonna be pink cherry blossoms. I'm gonna get some red. Now, to make pink, you just use less red. Let the paper show through, and that's what creates the pink. The more red you have on your brush, the more red it will be. We're just gonna put some pink in here like this, some red. And when it dries, it's going to dry a lot lighter. Just kind of dabbing that in there, dab, dab, dab. Letting the watercolor paint itself. It will do a great job if you let it. The hard part is letting it. The other fun thing we can do while we're waiting for that to kind of dry, a little bit of splatter. Well, it's kind of going everywhere, but that's okay. I can easily pick it up from where I don't want it. It's pretty watered down. So I'm just tapping it on my finger. If we didn't want this to be so hard edge, or maybe even this right here, get your paper towel and kind of wad it up just a little bit. So it's got a little bit of texture in here. You don't want to stick your finger in it and start jabbing your paper. That will damage your paper. But you can kind of softly come in here and tap around here and let that paper towel kind of pick up a little bit, just a little bit. Don't need to overwork it. That's another common thing I see people do, is just overworking. Do something like that and then let it go. Let's see what happens. Let that dry. This is still really wet up here, and I want to continue to just let it do its thing. I'm drying it with a hairdryer, which causes it to dry faster and then causes some blooms, which I'm totally okay with for my trees. But if I wanted something very smooth, then you might want to just let it air dry. All right, we're gonna get some blue. I'm putting it over here. Pull some of this red, create a nice little lilac-y purple. Let's try something a little different. Let's just put some wet onto dry, and then we'll add some water. We'll see what that does. So I'm gonna put some purples on here, just along the top edge of where these flowers are gonna be on these bushes. Then I'm gonna wash my brush out, and then we'll come back in and add some water down below, kind of touching it to that paint that we just painted, and then see what it does. Then we'll let that dry. These are blooms. It's gonna look great for these trees in here. Now, if we're thinking about light sources, I'm gonna say the light's coming from this direction. We'll play with that as we do some cast shadows. You're gonna see the tops of the trees be lighter, and then it's just gonna get darker underneath. Let's dab a few areas with water. So maybe we dab something in there, trying to leave the tops untouched, imagining where these branches might be, and then kind of dab on top, and then coming along to this bottom. So just like tapping, tap, tap, tap. Do the same thing over here. Just kind of imagining where the overhang of the branches are. We can also, with a very skinny tip of our brush, do some leaves out here. Just a few little dots. There are some leaves hanging out over the side. Kind of what we did with the splatters, but we want some darker ones. To do some that are even darker at the bottom here, I'm going to add just a little bit of blue, and we'll add a little bit of purple down in here. Just imagining that some of these big fluffy branches full of cherry blossoms, but underneath there's going to be some shadow pieces, just a few spots. And I'm doing that while it's still wet, so it blends itself into that just a little bit. And darkness around the bottom here, where our path is going to be. I'm going to put this color in here onto the dry paper. I want to do the same thing kind of over here. Gives it a little bit of depth because it's in the foreground. It needs to be the darkest in the foreground, lightest as you get further and further away. That's just the rule. Just kidding, there's no rules in art. Just do whatever makes you feel really good about what you're doing. Fun little trick, I'm going to use the back of my paintbrush here to kind of pull some of these little pieces, just a little bit. Just to give it some more definition there. Just want a little bit. Nothing super duper crazy. Little grasses over here. And we'll let that dry. Got some yellow, a little bit of orange, and we'll put this in as a color first. We'll just kind of come along this path. Don't worry about the people. Putting some brown in here. If it is too dry, wash out my brush, dry it off so it's mostly clean. And then you can kind of move that color around just a little bit, cleaning off my brush as I go. We can do some darker color in the front while it's still wet, and it will kind of soften itself up just automatically. I'm going to put just a little bit more red just as some detail, little details. That's where we're at now. Just some little dots in here. Little dots, just in a few spots. Now I can also come in and kind of soften a little bit of those, blend a few of them together so they don't feel so polka dotty. And I just cleaned my brush off and dried it off. And I'm doing that as I go. Otherwise I'll just be spreading the paint around. Now that these areas are kind of dry, let's put our people in. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for that. I'm going to mix together some ultramarine blue. I'm mixing it in this color that I already have. I don't get too worried about it. I know that it's going to be really dark. I just go with whatever's on there. Sometimes it makes a nice version of that color that I'm looking for. Head, a body, which is kind of like a weird long shape. We're not trying to get too overly detailed about it. And a dog. Maybe this person's got a hat. Okay. Maybe they're holding hands or something. Perfect, my perfect little people. While I have this dark color, we're gonna start putting in the trunk of the tree. And I want this to be pretty thick paint, long branches in here. And you could do some branches up in the tree as well. Maybe there's something up in there. And maybe you see some branches over in there. Remember we said our light's going this way. So maybe we have this soften at the bottom here and pull some of that color that way. It comes down like that. I'm just making this up. That can go like this. And we've got some branches up in here that you can see. Maybe something over there. Blue is what you use for shadows. Blue under here, cast some shadow over that way. Blue under here, cast some shadow that way. We're gonna cast some shadow across the road. These guys have some shadows also. Dog has some shadow, a little less shadow. And let's put some dark blues in here. Just kind of thinking of the light hits it and then cast shadow down below. Maybe even over in here a lot more. And I'm just dabbing it in there. That makes it feel like it's pretty close up. Maybe a few more dark areas on this side of the tree. Really sort of set that these are on the opposite side of the light. So cute. Let's take the tape off. Well, thanks for hanging out. I really hope you enjoyed this little springtime scene. Join me next time when I make stuff.